Marianne Williamson, who is a spiritual advisor, notable to be the spiritual advisor of Oprah Winfrey. She's a best-selling author. She's a founder of the Project Angel Food. That's a food delivery organization. She's an activist. She's very, very influential. Her voice carries. She, on Tuesday, announced that she will be running for the Democratic nomination for president. So on Thursday, she appeared on CNN and she had an interview with John Berman.
Your campaign has a number of proposals already out there listed on your website, some very specific. You call for universal health care, Medicare for all, make permanent the middle class tax cut, provide free higher education, including free tuition for public colleges, introduce government support for children's services, establish a Green New Deal. All of these, in some cases, sound like many of the policies for the progressive wing of the Democratic Party. Do you feel it's necessary to come up with a way to pay for these all?
Well, that's such a canard in this country. Anytime somebody wants to have a $2 trillion tax cut where you give 83 cents of a dollar to the richest among us, nobody's supposed to ask, how are you going to pay for that? Anytime somebody wants to have a $2 trillion war that turns out to be the biggest foreign policy blunder in our history, nobody's supposed to ask, how are you going to pay for that? The truth of the matter is every dollar that we invest in education is money we are investing in our economy. If you really want a vibrant economic system, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, you take care of your children today. Our current economic system does not lead to a vibrant economy. It leaches when you have short-term profit maximization for huge corporations as your bottom line. You're allowing market forces to replace democracy as your organizing principle for your society. You're not building a strong economy, and we need to name that, see that for what it is. It is propaganda that serves a veiled aristocratic system. We want, of course, a vibrant economy in the United States. What you do is unleash the creativity and the productivity of the American people.
Yo.
I like where she went with that, okay? At the beginning, she talks about this, this scam that is always played on the American people. And it's facilitated by the media a lot. How are you going to pay for that? When the Republicans passed that tax scam of 2017, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, it's going to cost the country over $1 trillion. More than that, because the CBO after that has said, yes, it's going to cost even more than that. So the Republicans weren't worried about that whatsoever. So only when you actually want to take care of people, do what's morally right, actually try to fix this broken system that we have. Actually, it's not broken, it's working perfectly fine, but you understand what I mean. When you actually want to do something that elevates the middle class and poor people, then you have to answer the question of how do we pay for that? And I remember growing up as a kid, right? I remember thinking to myself, she got into this. We all grew up, I think, hearing that the United States is the best country in the world. We're the freest. We're the best. We're #1 across the entire planet, right? So growing up and realizing that that's not true, I'm thinking to myself, now, hold on, let me see. If we actually wanted to foster a situation where our economy was the best, was the brightest, had the most entrepreneurs, had the best technology, the best ideas, all of this, then we would be investing in our youth. And that's where she went. I never understood that as a kid. We would be trying to help our kids along. We wouldn't be trying to put them in debt for their education. No, we want to help you get ahead so you put the whole country ahead. That will promote a better situation for all of us. So that's where we need to go. I think that's where, I think anybody reasonable would understand that's where we need to go. That's exactly what she said. But that's not the situation that we currently live in.
But like you said, when I kind of brought up, why these billionaires invest on the back end, but not the front end, you said it was about what?
About power.
Yeah, it's about power. But I do like how she kind of like delivered such savagery in a soft way.
Right.
I'm really curious.
And concisely too.
And very, very concisely. And like I'm willing and wanting to see what type of reaction people have with her. Especially those on the right who have been attacking Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Bernie Sanders. And from the looks of it, her positions and her platform seemed to be way more comprehensive and more to the left. So I'm interested to see how people respond to her, particularly people in the media. And I'm just very surprised that CNN had her on. And before people think that she's just doing this to try to sell books, she's had #1, best-selling books. She's been addressing these political issues for a while. I think we talked about this a couple of years ago, but she penned an open letter to Hillary Clinton in 2014. And
you should take a look at that.
You should go take a look at it. Just type in Marianne Williamson, open letter to Hillary Clinton, 2014. You don't even have to type in the year. It's going to come up. It's a long letter. And me and Will were quite confused as to why a well-known author, right? A well-known author.
Who's run for political office before, too.
Who's run for political office before, 2 million Twitter followers, a spiritual guru of Oprah. Like I said, she has best-selling books. We're wondering why there wasn't a lot of attention given to this open letter. An open letter that pointed out Williamson's desire to see a woman as president.
Right.
Making that plain, but having concerns about what Hillary Clinton is connected to as far as politically. Kind of like how a lot of progressives saw Hillary Clinton.
Oh, yes.
I'm just surprised that did not get a lot of attention, considering how prominent Williamson is.
There's another clip that we want to show you, but more on her platform. You heard some of the things rattled off by John Berman. But on her platform, you can go to it. You can see, yes, she supports Medicare for All, Green New Deal. She wants to make permanent the middle-class tax cut. She wants to repeal the corporate tax cuts from the 2017 tax scam. She wants to, she says, reduce and in some cases outright forgive the debt of college loans, provide free higher education, including tuition at public colleges, community colleges, and trade schools. It goes on and on and on. There are many tabs for you to click on and actually look into, and it's not just like one paragraph. There's a like we said, there's a wealth of information where you can actually get to know exactly what she's about and what she supports. All right, so getting to the last clip, right? So this last clip, it references a subject that not a lot of politicians have the gumption to actually broach. So we'll just let it speak for itself, and then we will talk about it.
You are a candidate who believes that African Americans should receive reparations for slavery, specifically $100 billion paid out in a 10-year annual installment of $10 billion. Is this symbolic, or do you think this money goes to some practical purpose?
This is not symbolic at all. At the end of the Civil War, General Tecumseh Sherman promised to every formerly enslaved person 40 acres and a mule. And those 40 acres and a mule would have given a formerly enslaved population an opportunity to reintegrate, to integrate into free society. What happened instead, of course, was black code laws were passed in the American South, which ensured subpar social and political and economic opportunities for the former slave population. This was not addressed for 100 years until the Civil Rights Movement. And while the Civil Rights Movement gave Voting Rights Act, although that has been chipped away since 2013, and gave a lot of political opportunities that had not been there for the 100 years previous, it did not address the fact that we have not yet paid that debt. Germany has paid $89 billion in reparations to Jewish organizations since World War II, and Ronald Reagan signed the American Civil Liberties Act, by which we paid every surviving member who had been interned during the World War II in the Japanese internment camps $22,000. Right. I believe $100 billion given to a council that would apply this money to economic projects and educational projects of renewal for that population is simply a debt to be paid. And until we pay it, we will deal with these issues.
Okay, well, I don't know how to deal with that, dog, because I'm not used to that. I will say I'm not used to that. I've seen the subject being put forth before, but I've never seen it put forth so boldly. You know what I'm saying?
And not by a presidential candidate.
Oh, don't you like the way she looked at your boy when he says, "Is this symbolic?" Did you see the? She was like,
symbolic.
Almost like Soldier Boy. Symbolic, symbolic.
Hell no, it ain't symbolic. It's necessary. And see, I like where she took it too. Look, when you talk about reparations, yeah, that subject can get quite uncomfortable, and people on the other side of that, the opponents of that conversation, will say that, hey, you know, we're decades, we're centuries, you know, past slavery, you know, and you know we've had the civil rights movement, you know, and we've had the Voting Rights Act, and you know you're not enslaved anymore. You know what? We're just gonna put like money in black people's bank accounts or something like that. There's all types of things to kind of refute that kind of idea, and the idea is not to enrich individual black people. That's not the idea. The idea is to promote a system that has been abused. Well, that has abused people of color for so long. The idea is to provide more opportunity for people, black people, more opportunity in terms of the economy, more opportunity in terms of education. All right. You can't go back and undo what was done during slavery. You can't go back and give the former slaves 40 acres and a mule. You can't go back and do that. So really, there is no solution where you can actually like try to make things right. You can't make things right, because what happened was that you allowed white people, this country allowed white people to own land, property, and to grow wealth in this country, while black people could not do that. You can't do anything about that. But what you can do is attack the system that it's still abusing black people today, and that goes back to that period of time.
What day did we just celebrate a couple of weeks ago? A couple of Mondays.
Martin Luther King Jr. Day.
So that her perspective on reparations is kind of lockstep with his. So I don't. To me, if people are seeing this as some sort of, like, I guess surprising and like revolutionary idea, it's really not. It's kind of an idea that has been pushed by most civil rights advocates.
Right.
She's just kind of has the courage to introduce this subject as she's declaring a run for presidency.
The moral courage.
That takes some courage right there. And it's not just like a standalone solution.
No.
If you listen to the entire interview, like, she just doesn't talk about, you know, fixing the system legislatively. She talks about kind of the United States having one of those spiritual awakening, coming to Jesus moments. So she understands it's more about like questioning why the system is designed like this, kind of connecting the system being designed like this to a internal dysfunction of the American heart and the American mind. So it's not just let's throw money at this. There has to be some sort of, like she said, we have to talk about it. So that means we have to have a dialogue about why the system is set up the way it is. And I think that's what she was trying to get at. And if we do have that discussion, it does kind of make sense that the United States invest money into rectifying those issues that have been created over history, over this long period of time.
She referenced Germany and how they have tried to rectify problems, you know, with their troubled past, monetarily as well. Money is definitely a very important key to this whole thing, to reparations. But again, we're not talking about individual black people. She's talking about economic projects. We're talking about educational projects, okay? We're talking about lifting people up out of poverty, investing in communities, investing in schools, investing in business in these communities so that we won't have these hoods, we won't have these ghettos anymore. We won't have people that can't afford health care and education and books. We won't have those type of situations anymore. That's what we're talking about when we talk about reparations. So again, for her to actually have the courage, and you know what? It ain't even courage to her, because that's just what she is. That's just who she is. If I'm up there and I'm talking about it, since I believe in it, it wouldn't be a thing for me to actually voice that. So when you see somebody do it, yeah, I mean, it looks like courage because you don't see anybody else, virtually anybody else, talking about that on the big stage. But it's just normal for her because she actually is trying to do something in this country. So I do want to highlight, because one thing that I, in particular, always look to on somebody's platform, on their campaign websites, I always look for criminal justice reform.
Yeah.
All right. So there's a section that I wanted to read off. On her website, she says, according to the Bureau of Justice, incarceration in the U.S. grew from 300,000 people in 1980 to more than 2 million in 2014. This statistic is startling given that data from both the FBI and the Bureau of Justice shows that violent crime in America has fallen sharply over the last quarter of a century. Our criminal system has disproportionately targeted African Americans and Latinos, who have the highest likelihood of facing the most strict prison sentences than their white counterparts. According to a U.S. Sentencing Commission report, the prison sentences of black men are 20% longer than white men for similar crimes. America today is incarcerating a higher proportion of African Americans than South Africa did at the height of apartheid, and there are more imprisoned black men behind bars than there were enslaved in 1850.
Yo. Yeah, I don't think people kind of...
That's what I look for.
I don't,
you understand?
I don't think people look objectively at how, like, the prison demographics just magically shifted.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like, during the 70s and 80s. Because at one point, it was mostly white people in prison. At one point, it was just mainly white people. People who were classified as white. And all of a sudden...
dramatic shift.
Just a dramatic shift.
Organically.
Of course organically, because, you know, black people just started committing all this crime. And then just white people just started behaving like upstanding citizens.
That's how humans work. That's how humans work. Yeah.
So no one questions this dramatic shift. And this dramatic shift occurred organically. Or occurred like shortly after the Civil Rights Act.
Oh, yeah. After the Jim Crow laws and all that.
Jim Crow laws that tried to warn off. Yeah.
See, again, this is what I look for. If you can identify the problem as it is, I'm not looking for lip service. I'm not looking for you to pander. I'm looking for you to address the facts and the real problems that we are facing in this country. If you can do that and try to do something about that, well, you're on the way to my support. You're on the way to my support. Straight up. So I'm looking forward to
hearing more from her.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to her place in this race. We know that this Democratic race for presidential nominee, we know it's going to be, I mean, it's already a long list, right? And we don't have all the entrants in yet. Bernie Sanders possibly could get in, Biden, Cory Booker, there might be some others as well. So we know we're going to have many people actually vying for this spot to become the 2020 Democratic nominee. I hope that she does have a voice, and I hope her voice actually carries, and I hope that she is able to amass a lot of support.